The night flight from New York to Los Angeles was almost empty, the dim cabin lights glowing softly as passengers settled in for the long journey. Amelia clutched her baby boy, Noah, against her chest, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. She hadn't slept properly in days. Between juggling 2 jobs and trying to pay rent, life had become a blur of survival. When she finally took her seat beside a well-dressed man in a navy suit, she whispered a polite apology for the crying baby and tried to keep to herself. The man gave her a brief nod, his cold expression unreadable. What she didn't know was that this man, Alexander King, was one of the youngest billionaires in America. As the plane ascended into the night sky, Noah whimpered and fidgeted in her arms. Amelia rocked him gently, humming a lullaby under her breath. Her eyes grew heavy, her body yearning for rest. "You can lean back," came a deep voice beside her. She blinked, startled. The billionaire was watching her, a trace of softness in his tone. "You look like you haven't slept in days." She hesitated, murmuring a small thank you, before exhaustion overcame her. Within minutes, Amelia drifted off to sleep, her head unknowingly resting on his shoulder. Alexander froze for a moment, glancing down at the sleeping woman and her child. He was not used to physical closeness. His world was built on control, distance, and power. Yet there was something disarmingly pure about her. The faint scent of baby powder, the tired innocence on her face, it all stirred something long buried within him. As Noah stirred, Alexander instinctively adjusted the blanket around them both, surprising himself with a gentle gesture. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone at 30,000 feet. When the flight landed hours later, Amelia woke abruptly, her cheeks flushing as she realized her head had been resting on the stranger's shoulder. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry," she stammered, sitting up quickly. "I didn't mean—" Alexander interrupted softly. "It's fine." But before she could apologize again, she noticed something. Her baby was holding a small stuffed bear that hadn't been there before. "Where did you get that?" she asked, turning to him. He simply said he dropped his pacifier in his sleep. "I asked the attendant to bring something for him." Amelia's heart softened, but she brushed it off politely. She didn't want pity. As passengers disembarked, she thanked him once more and gathered her things. But before she could leave, the pilot's voice announced a delay due to a missing luggage compartment. As they waited, Alexander glanced at her again. Her clothes were worn, her bag frayed, and yet she held herself with quiet dignity. He found himself asking, "Do you have a ride home?" She blinked, surprised. I'll take the bus," she replied. Something in his chest tightened. "Let me call you a car," he said firmly. She wanted to refuse, but before she could, Noah began to cry again. Flustered, she nodded weakly. Outside the airport, a sleek black car awaited them. The driver opened the door for her, and she hesitated, looking back at Alexander. "Why are you being so kind?" she asked. His gaze softened. "Because once someone helped me when I was lost too," he murmured. As the car pulled away, Amelia looked out the window, unsure why tears filled her eyes. She didn't know it yet, but this flight had changed everything. The next morning, as Amelia fed Noah in her small apartment, a knock sounded at the door. She opened it cautiously and froze. Standing there was Alexander King, holding a grocery bag. "You left your baby's bottle on the plane," he said calmly. Her jaw dropped. "You came all this way for that?" He shrugged. "I had a meeting nearby." But she noticed the way his eyes scanned the tiny apartment, the peeling wallpaper, the empty fridge behind her. "You're lying," she said quietly. He gave a faint smile. "Maybe." Over the next few days, their paths crossed again, once at the cafe where she worked, then again at the park. Alexander seemed to appear everywhere she went, though always with a reason that sounded too convenient. Slowly, Amelia's walls began to crumble. She learned that he had grown up in foster care, alone, abandoned by his parents just like Noah might have been without her. "Maybe that's why I noticed you," he admitted one evening. "You remind me of what I used to pray for, someone who didn't give up." Their friendship deepened, though both tried to deny what was blooming between them. When Noah fell ill one night, Alexander was the first to arrive at the hospital, holding her trembling hands as doctors worked. "He'll be okay," he whispered. And for the first time, she leaned into his chest, finding comfort where she never expected it. Days later, Noah was discharged, and as they left the hospital, Alexander turned to her and said, You and your son deserve better. Let me help you." But Amelia, proud and scared, shook her head. "I don't need saving," she whispered. Weeks passed, and Amelia returned to her routine, but something was missing. One morning, she found a letter slipped under her door. It was from Alexander. "I'm leaving for London tonight," it read. "But if you ever need anything, if you ever want a home, you know where to find me." Months later, on another flight, Amelia boarded with Noah again. As she took her seat, a familiar voice said softly, "You're late." Her eyes widened. Alexander was sitting beside her, smiling faintly. And as Noah laughed between them, she finally realized love had found them both in the clouds. Over the next week, Alexander's kindness became a steady presence in Amelia's life. He sent supplies for Noah, diapers, formula, warm clothes, always with no strings attached. Amelia accepted them, though her pride often tugs, whispering that she didn't need charity. But she could feel the difference. A stranger showing care, not for what she could offer, but because someone saw her mother's tired heart. They met again at the park under a gentle summer sky. Noah played by the swing while Alexander offered her a bottled water and a simple question. "How are you holding up?" Trouble and fatigue flickered across her face, but there was also something like peace, because help had arrived. She told him about her dreams of finishing nursing school, the burden of working nights, and the fear of being enough. He listened, not to respond or fix, but to understand. One evening, Alexander invited Amelia to his office, not for business, but to share dinner. They ate by the large windows overlooking the city, lights stretching out beneath them like stars. Noah was asleep in a car seat in the corner. The man whose world was built of boardrooms and profit margins talked quietly with her, asking about her mother, her childhood, her daily hopes. She found herself relaxing into this safe space, letting laughter come easily, letting vulnerability settle without shame. During that dinner, he handed her a small folder. Inside were documents, an offer of a scholarship to finish her education, paid in full, and an invitation to work with his foundation caring for single moms. Amelia stared, not sure she was hearing correctly. "You don't have to decide now," he said softly. "Just know that I believe in you." Tears filled her eyes. This was more than generosity. This was seeing her potential when so many had overlooked it. That night, Amelia lay awake, the scholarship papers spread on her lap, Noah's breathing soft beside her. She remembered the exhaustion, the desperation, the shame of trying to reach out by mistake. And yet here she was, bathed in possibility. She realized that sometimes mistakes lead to miracles. That one flight, one accidental shoulder, one missent text had changed her story. A month later, she stood at the front of her nursing class, giving a presentation. Her uniform was crisp, her voice steady. Alexander watched from the back, pride lighting his face. When she finished, applause filled the room. She looked over at him, and he gave a thumbs up. In that moment, she felt seen not just as a struggling mother, but as a capable woman with strength, wisdom, and a future. Noah, too, began to change. Once shy, he now laughed easily, reaching for toys, babbling little words. He loved being in Alexander's presence, feeling safe. Watching them together, Amelia understood that love isn't just about romantic gestures. It's about consistency, reliability, showing up. Alexander was showing up. Word of Amelia's scholarship spread. Her community rallied behind her. Neighbors who had seen her struggle, classmates who admired her courage. The foundation where she started working opened a mentoring program. Young moms who thought they had no voice began to speak up. And every time Amelia walked into that foundation office, she carried Lily Hope with her. The name, the mission, the faith. One snowy evening, Amelia and Alexander stood outside her apartment door. He held a single rose. "For you," he said. "Because you deserved kindness when you least expected it." She accepted it. Voice soft. "Thank you." They stood in the snow, hands touching, realizing that sometimes the most meaningful relationships begin with a moment of vulnerability and a stranger's compassion. Years later, Amelia stood on a stage, cap and gown shining, nursing degree in hand. Lily giggled in the front row, clapping loudly. Alexander sat beside her, proud and tears in his eyes. She addressed the crowd. Mistakes can lead to miracles. And when she looked at Alexander, she saw not just a partner, but a man who changed his world by responding to a wrong number. They had built something real: love, purpose, hope, from a mistake that turned into destiny.